round of 16. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, man. Hey, what's up, What's that station you listening to? Oh, man, you don't know? That's Talk Radio. KBLA, 1580 AM. Check it out. 1580 KBLA. KBLA AM. 1580 Talk Radio. Progressive.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're celebrating our 4th anniversary, and this track right here is the gift one of our devoted listeners presented to us.
Where you get some information, get a true education, just to know. Ooh, yeah. 1580.
How cool is that? Having a member of our KBLA delegation write us a song. Stop it! Our listeners love us, and there ain't nothing we can do about it. Wouldn't want to. Thanks to Cardell and everybody else for turning on KBLA Talk 1580. We love you right black.
KBLA 1580 Talk Radio. Progressive.
You know I love music. And every time I hear something hot, it makes me want to move. It makes me want to have fun. But it's something about this joint right here. This joint right here, it makes me want to let it go. Can't let this thing called love get away from you. Feel free right now, go do what you want to do. Can't let nobody take it away from you, from me, from we. No time for moping around, are you kidding? And no time for negative vibes, cause I'm winning. It's been a long week, I put in my hardest. Gonna live my life, feels so good to get it right. So I like what I see when I'm looking at me, when I'm walking past the mirror. Don't stress through the night at a time, and my life ain't worried about if you feel it. Got my head on straight, I got my vibe right, I ain't gonna let you kill it. See, I wouldn't change my life's just fine, 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 ooh, fine, 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 ooh, just fine, 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 ooh. See, I wouldn't change my life's just fine.
I'm Tavis Smiley. That's Mary J. And glad to have you with us in this hour of our program. We are now in hour 2 with 2 amazing conversations on tap for you in this hour. On the B side of this hour, here's a headline for you. We study fascism and we're leaving the U.S. Yale history professor Marci Shore and her husband are out of here. She'll tell us why and where when we speak with her on the backside of this hour. But we commenced this hour with Joshua Fisher-Birch, researcher and content review specialist with the Counter Extremism Project. He joins us today in advance of the upcoming Eradicate Hate Global Summit in Pittsburgh. Josh, we're good to have you on the program. How are you today, sir?
Hi, Tavis. I'm doing fine. Thank you so much for having me on today. It's great to be here.
No, it's my honor to have you on. Thank you for your time. Let me start by asking you to share with us what the Counter Extremism Project is. We just talked in our last hour about Project 2025. We know what that is, sadly, given this big bill that just passed the Senate moments ago. Democrats are talking about Project 2029, their response to Project 2025. So it's all about projects today. Tell me about the work of the Counter Extremism Project.
The Counter Extremism Project is an organization that was founded in 2014 to fight mainly the online presence of terrorist and extremist organizations and to prevent their use of technology platforms.
Mm-hmm. My sense is, given the founding of this project in 2014, that somebody believes that the growth of these spaces and places online is pretty monumental.
Yes, absolutely. And this was happening during the rise of ISIS online, who are using various social media platforms to spread propaganda and recruit. And this is a phenomena that has continued to this day, especially using a wide variety of social media and encrypted platforms.
Mhm. No naivete here, but why? We talked a moment ago about the fact that this kind of hate online is growing. What's driving it? Why are we experiencing that in real time?
It's a great question. There are a lot of different answers here in terms for the growth of hate online. Part of it is the fact that the internet connects people all around the world. If you're interested in a particular ideology or able to connect with others around the world who might share that ideology, no matter how small or niche that is. So that's one of the reasons why groups can really recruit and spread propaganda in these online spaces. And for certain groups, they might have very few members or they might have a very small support base. So it's really the internet that allows them to find potential recruits and supporters, no matter where they are.
We got introduced to the word, to the term, I should say, lone wolf some years ago, as you well know. So everybody knows what that term means now when they hear it. Somebody acted as a lone wolf in a particular attack or assault. You mentioned groups a moment ago. I'm wondering whether or not what we're really experiencing is the growth of these groups or the growth of individuals. Because every time something jumps off, it seems that we're in conversation about this particular individual, whether it's the individual in Milwaukee who killed these political leaders days ago, or this individual in Idaho who this 20-year-old who they just found dead after what he did there, killing some firefighters. So is it the growth of hate groups or individuals who are being radicalized and behaving and acting as lone wolves, if that question makes any sense at all?
Oh, of course, yeah. And it's a question of both.
Right.
Because you have individuals who join groups, perhaps in some cases thinking that these groups will be more violent than they are. In many cases, you have groups that are training individuals for acts of violence. But the objective of the group is to perpetuate the group. It's to grow, it's to recruit, it's to spread propaganda, it's to perhaps fundraise. That group wants to continue to exist. And so this sort of differs then from the individual. And when the individual, outside of command and control, outside of, a leadership structure of someone who's perhaps telling them what to do, when an individual is able to look online, perhaps after seeing a mass shooting, and read the manifesto of the perpetrator, and perhaps if they realize that they agree with that and see that this is something that they want to take part in. So it really, it's definitely about both individuals and groups, and individuals acting as lone actors have the potential to commit, horrifically violent attacks as we've seen in the last several years.
I guess the question for me now is, who are these people? Who are these individuals that we're talking about? Is there a profile of these individuals that we're discussing right now? We'll do that when we come forward with Joshua Fisher-Birch. He is with the Counter Extremism Project, and there's a major global summit called Eradicate Hate that's meeting in Pittsburgh weeks from now. We'll talk about that and what it says about the state of the world, that you have to have a summit. It's just sad that we need a summit called Eradicate Hate. That's what we're up for. That's the frame that we're in these days. I digress for now. More with Joshua Fisher-Birch when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Ron had a tax problem he just couldn't handle on his own.
I owed the IRS taxes for over 5 years, but I didn't have any money to pay the taxes.
Those years cost him dearly.
Most of it was fees and interest. It was horrible.
Ron finally called in the pros.
I called Optima Tax Relief, and boy, am I happy I did.
The leading tax resolution firm, Optima, is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. They've resolved over $1 billion for their clients. Ron was overjoyed.
They settled my account with the IRS. I was ecstatic. They are a lifesaver. They are. I am so happy.
Take Ron's advice and call Optima now for a free consultation.
Yeah, don't do like I did and wait. Call Optima Tax Relief. Do it now. You'll be ecstatic like me.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
He's a paradigm pioneer and the top-rated African-American talk show host in the nation, according to Talkers Magazine. You're tapped in with Tavis Smiley right now.
A junkie walking through the twilight. I'm on my way home. I left 3 days ago, but no one seems to know I'm gone. Home is where the hatred is. Home is filled with pain, and it might not be such a bad idea if I never went home again.
I'm Tavis Smiley. Glad to have you with us in this hour as we continue our conversation with Joshua Fisher-Birch, researcher and content review specialist for the Counter Extremism Project. There's a major global summit called Eradicate Hate coming this September in Pittsburgh. We'll talk about that and the need for these global summits about eradicating hate, what that says about the state of our world. You heard that track just a moment ago. If you were listening to the lyrics, you heard him say, home is where the hatred is. Home is where the hatred is. Maybe I shouldn't go home ever again. That lyric jumped out at me in part, Joshua, because the U.S. of A. is home for all of us, of course. And yet we never really want to talk about the hatred that is a part of our home. We can talk about hatred and extremism all around the world, but we have such a difficult time calling hate what it is here at home. What do you make of that reality?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really important way of looking at it. And I think in terms of dealing with the unique historical moment that we're in now, part of this is facing our history. I mean, facing the history of the Ku Klux Klan as the original domestic terrorist organization in the United States and the legacy of that.
And to your point, the legacy, what is the legacy of that? It's one thing for us not to face our history. We know full well we're in a moment right now where this administration wants to turn a blind eye to all kind of history, certainly the history of African Americans and their role in building this nation. I quote Du Bois all the time, the great black intellectual. Would America have been America without her Negro people? We know the answer is no, and yet this administration wants to turn a blind eye to the history that black people have made in this particular country. So it's one thing, to your point, to not want to wrestle with the real history of the Klan in this country, but to your mind, what is the legacy, since you use that word, I'll follow you, what is the legacy of the Klan all these years later, Joshua?
Well, it's certainly about creating the context for white supremacist violence and, the ignoring of white supremacist violence, whether that's by different parts of the government or different organizations. It's something, this is hatred it breeds in the shadows. And this is something that has continued in the United States over the years. And we certainly have a long history of it.
Yeah, no naivete in asking this question, but I'm asking for a particular reason. Why do you think, you're an expert in this field, why is it you believe that we choose to ignore this white supremacist history, not just the history, but in real time? Again, we don't want to engage in conversations about the way that extremism is growing, indeed, inside this country. Why do you think we want to? Why do we choose to ignore that as a nation?
I mean, this is a fantastic question. I think that these are difficult conversations to have in the United States for many people, and I think it's a lot easier to turn away. I think it's a lot easier to say, oh, well, we want to focus on specifically perhaps criminal acts by individuals in domestic terrorist and extremist organizations, but to not then focus on the ideology that's behind this. And it's an ideology that festers, and it's something that grows over time.
Yeah. What does your tracking tell you? I mean, what you do every day, of course, as a content review specialist and researcher at or with the Counter Extremism Project, is to track this kind of hatred, specifically online. What is your tracking telling you, broadly speaking, and more specifically, what's your tracking tell you about who these individuals are? Is there a profile of these individuals that we keep referring to as individuals?
Sure. So, I mean, by being in these spaces almost every day, I can say that groups and individuals in the online white supremacist communities see this as a particular moment where they think that they can grow, they think that they can recruit, they think this is the perfect time to spread propaganda, and that people will be receptive to it. And granted, a lot of these groups and individuals, they frequently think that it's a good time to spread this. However, as there's more violence in the United States, as there is more political polarization, as the federal government potentially goes after various groups in the United States, there are people who think that this is their moment. To give you an example of this, actually, there are a type of white supremacist group in the United States called active clubs, pretty early on latched on to the mass deportation message. Mm-hmm. And they saw this as a way to not to endorse the federal government, who they do not like, but they thought, if we can get out there and if we do banner drops, if we try and recruit on a message of mass deportations, people might be receptive to that now. And then maybe if more people are receptive to that now, we can try and bring them in a little bit later with more, a little bit more refined white supremacist ideology to try and bring them in. Mm-hmm. When these things are spoken about more in public and and on the news, these groups see this as an opportunity where they can recruit.
Yeah. Let me pivot, if I can, Joshua, from the perpetrators to the victims. You mentioned mass deportation and how these online hate groups and these individuals who are engaged in spreading hate online latched onto this notion of mass deportation as an opening, as a window, as an on-ramp, if you will, to augment to increase their recruiting. So they are the perpetrators, but the victims typically in this country have been African Americans, as you well know. You mentioned
Yes.
mass deportation. My mind, of course, goes not to black folk, but indeed to brown folk, although certainly black people are a part of that mass deportation. I was just reading a piece yesterday, the piece about Donald Trump, removing all the protections from Haitian migrants. And so here we are again, forcing Haitians to go back home, not letting them in. It's that old conversation about the wet foot, dry foot policy. I ain't got time to get into that. But Donald Trump has turned up the heat on Haitians. So it's not just brown people who are a part of this conversation about mass deportation. I repeat, as I've said many times on this program, this issue of these deportations and these ICE raids, yes, black folk, this is our issue as well. And you, again, see that with Donald Trump turning up the heat on Haitians. That's a long way to get to a particular and simple question, which is, given that black people have been the disproportionate victims of this hate in this country, where white supremacy is concerned, but you mentioned mass deportation. So what do we know about who the victims are? Who are the targets of this increasing hate online, Joshua?
Sure. So it's certainly African Americans, it's immigrants, it's LGBTQ plus people. It's Jews, who are frequently portrayed as the people who kind of control the entire situation. And sometimes they're seen as the principal enemy, specifically of neo-Nazi groups. But even so, these groups target pretty much everyone who is not straight, who is not white. These groups are really, in terms of who they target, in some cases they're looking for bandwagoning behavior online. They're looking to go after prominent individuals. They're looking to get in the news, and they're looking to really create division. But really, to go to your question here, it's a really wide variety of people. It's, in some cases, you might hear people use phrasing like they're going after people they don't view as legacy Americans. Would be another way that they might phrase it.
Yeah. It's clear to me, I sit in this chair every day, Joshua, for 3 hours and have to engage in conversations about a variety of topics I wish I didn't have to address, but such is my role every day. And it's become abundantly clear to me, and this isn't rocket science, it's clear to anybody paying attention, that Donald Trump is propelling this country into authoritarianism. More to the point, he's doing it at an alarming speed. I marvel sometimes at the rate, the speed at which he again is pushing us into pushing this country into an authoritative state, a state of authoritarianism, to put it that way. So here's my question: does extremism, which we've been talking about here, does extremism lead to authoritarianism, or I could flip it: does authoritarianism lead to extremism? In either case, what's your view of the link, the relationship between extremism and authoritarianism?
This is a great question. So there are several ways to look at it. So on one hand, you have groups that view politics as a means to achieve their goals. You have several neo-fascist and white supremacist groups in the United States that, if it were up to them, they might want to run for office. They view building political power as something that's important and achievable. Maybe not today. They might view that as something that's achievable in several generations. And that's what they're working towards. So groups like that, in some cases, are certainly in favor of increasing authoritarianism because they hope that's something that they can take part in, and they hope that it's something that they can exploit in the future. At the same time, many of those same groups do view themselves as targets of the federal government. They see themselves as being under surveillance. They don't think that the government really has their best interests in mind. So while they are in favor of authoritarianism, there are certainly aspects of the current administration and the current climate that we're in where they still view themselves as essentially outlaws to the system. And then you have other extremist groups, particularly accelerationist neo-Nazi groups in the United States, who are vehemently anti-government. And these are groups that they do not believe in a political solution. They believe in violence to achieve a white ethno-state through a race war. And so these types of groups will always view all federal government as the enemy, whether that is a more authoritarian state or not.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by this line of thinking right now, Joshua. And here's what's getting me. You're unpacking for us, and I take you at your word, and I read enough about this to know that you're right about this. There's so many of these individuals and these groups who are engaged in this kind of hate. Hate the government. They feel they themselves are targets, to use your word. They feel they're targets of government. They are anti-government. And yet, while they're anti-government and feel that they are targets of government, they like the guy who's leading the government. And there's something there to interrogate. I'm not sure what's there, but how can you hate government and you think you're targeted by government, but you like this particular guy running the government? What am I reaching for here, Joshua?
Sure. Well, I think it's important to note that, these violent right-wing extremist groups have their own agenda. Mm-hmm. And so some of them might view the current administration as something that will be useful to them in the short run.
Yeah.
As this idea of whether it means that whether people are moving more to the right, whether they think that people are, in their words, they might say people are waking up. If people are in favor of mass deportations, for instance, that this creates a context in which these groups think that they can grow. So part of this is sort of the idea of thinking of certain political actors maybe as useful for these groups to, with the objective that they hope to achieve, even if at the end of the day they say, well, we are against the government. This government does not represent us, but perhaps they are creating an opportunity in which we can operate.
Are there ways in which you see the behavior of these individuals and groups being emboldened by the brazenness of Donald Trump?
Well, there are certain ways that one could look at this. I mean, certainly the language regarding mass deportations and really dehumanization that's being used is something that these groups take great pleasure in. Mm-hmm. These groups, a big strategy that they use is the dehumanization of their supposed opponents. So that is something that they revel in.
Yeah.
Additionally, you can talk about law enforcement priorities. And while granted, there are many groups in the United States that are in favor of violence, and they will still be under investigation. Their members will still be arrested for committing acts of vandalism and violence. But overall, when it comes to perhaps issues of prevention and sharing information amongst whether it's federal law enforcement or other law enforcement agencies, this is something that could potentially kind of take a dive.
Yep. I'm out of time, but I don't need to ask a question. I can just suggest to you, this is why you need an Eradicate Hate Global Summit in Pittsburgh come September, because as long as we continue to see this kind of growth of these individuals and groups online who are engaging in this kind of extremism, this kind of hate, combined with Donald Trump's authoritarianism, we are in trouble, and perhaps we need more summits about how to eradicate hate. I'll leave it there. Joshua Fisher-Birch is researcher and content review specialist with the Counter Extremism Project. I've enjoyed having him on this program and learned a great deal. Joshua, thanks for your insights, my friend. All the best to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Tavis. It's great to be here today.
Thank you, sir. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Black former Baltimore State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby has completed her year-long home detention sentence. Convicted of perjury and mortgage fraud, Mosby marked the milestone with a speech at Empowerment Temple Church, saying she's ready to rise and fight for change. Her travel restrictions have been lifted, and she's focused on rebuilding her life and advocating for justice. Her legal team is now working to end her supervised release early. Uterine cancer cases are expected to surge by 2050, rising over 50% for Black women. Experts blame delayed diagnoses, limited care access, and systemic inequities. Advocates are calling for earlier screenings and more research to close the gap. And Sophia Rosing, the former Kentucky student who attacked Black peer Kyla Spring in a racist 2022 incident, has been released early from jail. Rosing served less than a year after pleading guilty to assault and public intoxication. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Rapid radios are instant push-to-talk walkie-talkies, offering national LTE coverage and no subscription ever. Perfect for instant contact with an aging parent. For a limited time, go to rapidradios.com and you'll get an extra 60% off, free UPS shipping, and add code RADIO for an extra 5% off.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
NBA free agency tipped off on Monday. The Lakers lost a key player. Forward Dorian Finney-Smith signed with Houston, 4 years at $53 million. The Clippers need to get younger in the offseason, but they signed a player who's 37 and another player who'll be 37 in December. Backup center Brook Lopez signed a 2-year deal with the Clippers for $18 million. Nicholas Batum re-signed with the Clippers for 2 years at $11.5 million. The WNBA is adding 3 new franchises: Detroit, Cleveland, and Philadelphia. The league will have 18 teams by 2030. Coco Gauff is back in action today for the first time since winning the French Open last month. The African-American star has a first-round match at Wimbledon against Diana Yastremska of Ukraine. Gauff is the number 2 seed at Wimbledon, behind Arina Sabalenka of Belarus. Last year at Wimbledon, Gauff was eliminated in the round of 16. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey man, hey, what's up, bro? What's that station you listening to? Oh man, you don't know? That's Talk Radio, KBLA 1580 AM. Check it out. 1580 KBLA AM. 1580 Talk Radio. Progressive.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're celebrating our 4th anniversary, and this track right here is the gift one of our devoted listeners presented to us.
Where you get some information, get a true education. Just to know, ooh, yeah. 1580.
How cool is that? Having a member of our KBLA delegation write us a song. Stop it! Our listeners love us and there ain't nothing we can do about it. Wouldn't want to. Thanks to Cardell and everybody else for turning on KBLA Talk 1580. We love you right black.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
I've been afraid that I had missed the chance of a lifetime. And by the way, I tumble with romance, girl, and I don't cry. But now I'm searching every star, searching near and far, till I find our one spirit flying high, flying high. I'll never give it up, never wanna give it up, even when their life is over. Never give it up, never wanna give it up, even when their life is over. Never give it up, never wanna give it up, even when this life is over. I'll be content in time.
That's Al Jarreau. I'm Tavis Smiley. Glad to have you with us in this half hour of our conversation. As promised, a conversation with Yale history professor Marci Shore. So I came across this piece a while ago, and the headline read, "We study fascism and we're leaving the U.S." We study fascism and we're leaving the U.S. Just had a conversation a moment ago about fascism and authoritarianism and extremism and hate in this country, and so I'm delighted to welcome to this program now Professor Marci Shore. Professor Shore, how are you today? Good to have you on the program.
Thank you, Tavis. I'm doing pretty well under the circumstances of, the disastrous state of the world.
Yeah, that we're all in the same boat in that regard. So let me just jump in and make the most of the time that we have here. Tell me about this piece. I read it, but I want the audience to sort of tap into it. Tell me about the piece, "We Study Fascism and We're Leaving the U.S."
So the New York Times piece, well, the first thing I should say is that, we did not write the headline. The title was written by the editors, and they took hours of interviews with us, and then they collaged it and juxtaposed it with a lot of footage from, different political events and from Toni Morrison's 1995 speech. So it's not like a text that I wrote myself. The headline perhaps, creates a somewhat distorted picture, as if we all just suddenly from one day to the next decided to leave the States in response to a particular thing that Trump did. What I liked about the piece and what I thought that the editors really captured well was that all of my insights and sense of panic and terror about what's happening in my own country come from my being a historian of Eastern Europe and having spent my whole adult life studying 20th century totalitarianism here.
And to your point, since you went there, I'll follow you. What are the takeaways from that parallel, if you will?
There are many takeaways, one of which is that, and they captured this very well with the Toni Morrison clip, is that democracy, liberalism breaks down and terrorizes step by step. The thing that we thought was unimaginable one day can become the new normal 3 months later, and nobody even notices. Our human capacity to normalize the abnormal is in fact quite terrifying. I'm dialing in now from Austria, and the Austrian President Alexander von der Bellen said during one of the commemorations of Auschwitz, Auschwitz did not fall from the sky. It didn't happen suddenly from one day to the next. These moments of dehumanization, of gradual compromises, of accepting violence, accepting race, it happens step by step. And we've seen that before. In November 2016, John Oliver said immediately after the election on his comedy show Last Week Tonight, he said, everybody write on a Post-it note, this is not normal, and put it on your refrigerator. And that was not a joke. I thought that was actually one of the most profound pieces of advice that Americans got, in the wake of the first Trump administration. We're going to start to make things normal that should not be normal. And that, of course, is what happens.
Yep. I take your point, born of your study, that this doesn't happen overnight. It's a step-by-step process. And that said, though, I literally just said moments ago in conversation with our prior guest that I am taken by the alarming rate, the speed with which Donald Trump is propelling us into propelling this country into authoritarianism, which is a bit different than a step-by-step process. How do you read that distinction?
I would say that the step-by-step process began at least, 10 years ago now.
Okay.
And so now, of course, we feel this acceleration, but it didn't come from nowhere. I mean, I would in fact go back at least to 2008 to Sarah Palin.
Yeah.
I felt like when John McCain chose Sarah Palin, she was a character right out of the 1930s. That was an alliance between the old conservative right and the new fascist right. And it takes the old right a little bit too long to realize that the new fascist right is not just a more energetic version of themselves. Sarah Palin lived in a completely fictitious world in which anything was possible, and she would happily incite a mob to lynch someone.
Yeah. I'm struck by your use of two words. You are obviously a brilliant professor, Yale pedigree. And so when you use words like panic and terror, that grabs me. Tell me more about those word choices, panic and terror, in this moment.
Well, admittedly, I'm a very anxious person, but I'm a historian of the 1930s, and you know what can happen. You know that morality can break down. You know how scapegoating mechanisms can work. You know that the people who seem so beautifully civilized and went to fancy parties and knew which fork to use can suddenly be purging people and throwing them in gas chambers or lynching them or shooting them. You know that that vulnerability is inherent in the human condition. And that perhaps predisposes me to panic a little bit sooner than other people did. I was already quite panicked in fall of 2015 when Trump came on the scene. I understood that his total unhinging from empirical reality was not just a kind of absurdist sense of amusement. I knew that this kind of post-truth form of, let's call it neo-fascism, could be deadly. And I knew that, and I panicked, not because I'm smarter than other Americans, but because I had been watching what was happening in Russia and Ukraine, and I understood how Putinism had come up in this kind of postmodern, post-truth version of fascism.
And yet there are those, as you know well, Professor Shore, who say that with all due respect to your story of history, that could never happen in the United States. That would never happen here. To those persons, you say what?
I think it's an illusion to think that it couldn't happen anywhere. I think what history teaches us is that these are vulnerabilities that are inherent in the human condition. I mean, I have friends from former Yugoslavia who saw that country turn into this nightmare of ethnic cleansing, and they would tell you too, like, yes, my dear friend, it can happen here, it can happen there, it can happen anywhere.
Yeah. When we come forward.
We don't have some magical immunity. I mean, Americans think that we drink in our liberal democracy with our mother's milk and we exist in some special state of exception, which is completely irrational. We were a country, as you well know, that was built on slavery. We had miscegenation laws until 1967, banning interracial marriage in various states. That was 22 years after the defeat of the Nazis.
Yeah. Nope. It's why I'm always pushing back against this notion of American exceptionalism when all the data to the contrary is incontrovertible. We keep advancing this notion that we are, God's gift to the world. I digress on that for now. When we come forward, I want to probe a little bit more, though, something you said that just, again, got my attention the minute it came out of your mouth, that the human condition is to be capable of normalizing the abnormal. And I see that every single day that I sit in this chair, the ways in which in real time, on a daily basis, we politically, socially, economically, culturally are normalizing the abnormal. I want to probe that more when we come forward with our guest, Yale history professor Marci Shore. Delighted to have her right now on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time, whenever news breaks, while we're on the air. It's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580, and we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. Thank you, thank you.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Less monologue, more dialogue. Tavis Smiley continues right now.
Professor Marci Shore, as I said earlier, I was struck by your phraseology that as humans we have this unique ability to pretty quickly normalize the abnormal. And as I said, I sit in this chair for 3 hours every single day moderating these conversations, and I am struck by the way academic institutions, the way our government every branch of government, the legislative branch of government. I'm struck by the way the Supreme Court of this country. I'm struck by the way law firms, I could do this all day long if I had the time, but I am struck every day by the ways in which in real time we see everyday people normalizing the abnormal in this era of Trump 2.0. Tell me more.
In these situations, most people get in line. I just ended a lecture in Italy trying to end on a hopeful note with a Hannah Arendt quote from Eichmann in Jerusalem, where she says, in conditions of terror, most people will comply, but some people will not. And the fact that some will not is what makes this planet potentially fit for human habitation. There's a natural, any individual thinking rationally has a reason to think that, well, the individual risk and cost of my refusing to make a compromise is greater than the social benefit of my taking a principled stance. But what is rational at an individual level, of course, collectively, is what makes terror possible. It's the collection of all those compromises as people thinking rationally get in line. And we've never found a solution to that problem.
Yeah. I guess the question is, which category of some has the greatest number of people in it right now in America? Which category of some are we? You take my point. You take my point.
Yes. No, I mean, one of the things that I've gotten involved in recently is with some colleagues at the New School-Based Democracy Center is a new website called Small Acts of Democratic Resistance, just trying to document what are often local or modest levels of resistance to this encroaching authoritarianism. You know, just to give some recognition and acknowledgement to what people are doing, you know, and to create a platform of solidarity, and also as a resource to foreign journalists. I'm here in Europe, and European journalists keep asking me, why is there so little resistance? And I think, well, there's actually more than you see, and those people deserve to be acknowledged.
Yep. We'll talk about the resistance in our remaining moments with Professor Marci Shore when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Helping to stretch your moral and political imagination. This is Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
More honesty than you can handle.
More empowerment than you can imagine.
You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Marci Shore, Yale history professor, I've been honored to have had on this program for the last half hour. Got about 4 minutes left, and I want to give it all to her. So, Professor Shore, for those of us who choose to stay and not to leave, what does the resistance look like? Put another way, what ought the resistance look like?
I certainly have no authority to talk, but what I would say as a historian is that the way in which terror functions is through atomization. You isolate people, you make them not know who is going to be next, you make people very fearful, you make people retreat, you make them not trust anyone else. The only antidote to atomization is solidarity. People need to come out on behalf of other people. There needs to be a common recognition of humanity. There needs to be an understanding that when people are being disappeared from the streets, that any of us can be next. And then there has to be a commitment to truth, which sounds very old-fashioned. There has to be an insistence that we're going to actually look at what's happening. We're going to force ourselves to see it clearly. We're going to describe it precisely. And we're not going to allow it to be a free-for-all. We're not going to say, well, who knows? You have your facts. I have my alternative facts. There has to be a commitment to truth. There has to be a commitment to solidarity. And there has to be a commitment to protecting those who are most vulnerable. I mean, when I saw Musk, Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, what does he do the first day he gets into power? He takes food away from starving children. And this is a level, a particularly high level of sadism. This isn't just apathy, indifference, disregard for human life. This is actually sadistic. And we've moved from casual disregard for human life, to actual performative reveling in sadism. And there needs to be a collective saying of no. There needs to be a collective saying of we are going to respect one another's lives, and we're going to reach out to one another, even if we don't completely agree with one another.
Yeah. I guess the question, I appreciate and respect that answer immensely. Glad you brought that forward. I guess the question in my mind is whether or not we are in this moment on a path toward, how about I put it, greater solidarity or increased nativism.
Both are possibilities. There are, I keep telling these European journalists, there are really good people out there. Every time I listen to Jamie Raskin or Jasmine Crockett or speak, I feel better about the world. I think okay, there are people who believe in truth. Jasmine Crockett is fearless. I think this woman must be so vulnerable. Anybody could be out to get her. And she is just out there insisting on speaking the truth as a matter of human dignity. And I clutch at those things okay, there are these signs of hope, and we have to believe that there's a possibility that human solidarity is going to win in the end.
Yeah. From your mouth to God's ears, the piece in the New York Times is titled, "We Study Fascism and We're Leaving the U.S." I invite you to read it. Marci Shore, enjoyed your time in Europe. Thank you for this time of conversation. I deeply appreciate your insights.
Thank you so much, Tavis.
Good to have you on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Black former Baltimore State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby has completed her year-long home detention sentence. Convicted of perjury and mortgage fraud, Mosby marked the milestone with a speech at Empowerment Temple Church, saying she's ready to rise and fight for change. Her travel restrictions have been lifted, and she's focused on rebuilding her life and advocating for justice. Her legal team is now working to end her supervised release early. Uterine cancer cases are expected to surge by 2050, rising over 50% for Black women. Experts blame delayed diagnoses, limited care access, and systemic inequities. Advocates are calling for earlier screenings and more research to close the gap. And Sophia Rosing, the former Kentucky student